were the fire safety protocols followed?
Well, I think the most important thing for everyone to recognize here is that all of our schools that were audited did conduct the requisite amount of fire drills. What the Auditor General pointed out is that we weren't following the policy as it was written, and so we've agreed with that recommendation, and we've taken steps this year to ensure that we do.
So what's the difference then?
What the policy talks about, what the National Fire Code talks about, is spacing the mode at equal times throughout the school year. And what was happening in some cases was, due to various circumstances, they were happening at probably more clustered in clumps rather than spread out throughout the school year.
Oh, okay, versus like, doing it September, December, April, June or something. It's just kind of maybe all in a couple of months, for example, or something.
Well, one of the things the Auditor General questioned about the HRSB was that schools were doing the ones for the fall term, they were doing them within the first month or 2 months of school. And what schools were looking at it from the standpoint of, let's teach the students, let's reinforce it so they have it down. Whereas the Auditor General is looking at the policy and saying the policy says equal times. So while they were being done, it was felt that we should be following the policy to the letter.
Okay. And what schools, I guess you kind of almost already answered this, but what schools didn't follow the rules for the fire lockdown and relocation drills?
Well, all HRSB schools followed the relocation requirements, which was 1 per year. What was in question was that of the 10 schools that were audited in Halifax, 2 only had conducted 1 isolation drill. So we've already taken steps to ensure that all of our schools, not just the ones that were audited, are going to have 2 isolation drills for the year.
And so which 2 schools were those?
I don't know, actually. It was a random sample.
Oh, okay. And yeah, I think you just said 10 schools, right? Out of how many schools?
We had 10 schools randomly selected out of 136 in Halifax that were audited. There were an additional 5 from another school board which were audited.
Okay. And what repercussions are there for schools that don't follow the rules?
Well, principals are expected to do as expected. What will be going forward is we'll have a plan in place which clearly spell out what those expectations are. At this point, what we're doing now is ensuring all of our schools have followed up. There's not going to be looking back and saying we should have done things this way because someone said so, therefore there's a repercussion for you. These are what the rules are. They're very clearly set for us going forward, and we will deal with repercussions going forward if necessary.
Okay. Any example of what that could be? Like after these guidelines are kind of put in place, could like the principal be reprimanded? Like what could these potentially be?
Well, really, I'm not going to hypothetically say what a repercussion could be for a principal, but there will be a clear expectations that they follow these guidelines. There will be reporting periods where they're expected to report back, and we'll be monitoring that. And we would expect that it will never come to that, but if it is, it will be a human resource matter.
Okay, so in theory, there will be that in something.
Well, there will be a clear expectation that these are done going forward, and if someone chooses not to do that, then our Human Resources Department would manage that as they would any responsibility that someone has as part of their job.
But would that entail repercussion?
It possibly could, but who knows, because we're only looking forward, we're not necessarily looking back here.
Okay. And what is being done to make sure, some of these like I think you kind of already answered, but I just want to make sure to answer all these, or ask all these.
Sure.
What is being done to make sure the drills happen in the future?
Well, one thing we did was we ensured all schools conducted a drill in the first week this year, which was one of the things the Auditor General talked about. We've also had our school administration department developing a comprehensive plan that they can then share with the principals, and that has an expectation for reporting built into it, and then we'll be reporting on that on a yearly basis.
So given this report and all that, would you feel safe to say that all these rules will be abided by in the future?
Well, absolutely, and I think it's really important for everyone to remember that all of our fire drills were being conducted. What was in question here was spacing the moat to ensure that we followed the policy in the National Fire Code, and we will ensure that does happen going forward. And I know the province, through the Education Department, has talked about ensuring that they have protocols in place to make sure that school boards, not just in Halifax, are doing that.
And were parents, make sure you're still in focus here. Were parents notified that their children's schools or school didn't follow the protocol?
No, there has been no notification to parents, but what I would say to parents with regards to this is what I would say to parents at any time. If they're concerned about the operation of their child's school, absolutely pick up the phone, call the school, speak with the principal. If they're not necessarily satisfied with the answer they get, that they should call the school board, and someone here would gladly speak to them about their concerns.
Okay, and then there's, I think, 2 other questions, and we're almost done. Has the school board checked to see whether other schools haven't followed the policies? So maybe not just that 10, well, I guess you don't even know which 10 those are, right? Or were those 10 revealed?
The 10 weren't revealed in the Auditor General's report.
So you guys don't even know either?
I don't know personally. I'm sure there might be someone here in our board who knows, but it would be the same answer. We're looking forward. So what we did this year is we've ensured all 136 schools have conducted their fire drill during the first week of school. We've given them a time frame for when the second fire drill should happen, and we are going to make sure that we adhere to the policy as it's written and making sure that it is done properly. One other thing to remember though, there was a concern about fire drills being done late in the school year last year. We had snow on the ground, lots of snow until very late in April and into May. We weren't doing fire drills at that point in time. I'm quite certain parents didn't necessarily want us to be doing surprise fire drills and having kids outside without coats on. So if we're going to be doing them at that time of the year, we have to look at maybe doing things differently and telling people we're doing a fire drill today so they can be done in the February and March time period.
Okay, and you kind of already answered this, but
Sure.
So the question was, has the school board checked to see whether other schools haven't followed the policies, and what was the result of that?
Well, all of our schools have done their fire drill, the first one of this year. They also know they have to do an isolation drill in the first semester. They have to do one in the second semester. So we absolutely know that they're on track to complete all of their requirements for this year, and we're going to make sure that we continue to remain on track throughout the school year.
4 of 10 didn't do the drills in the first week. Is that stat consistent with schools across the board?
I would not know whether that's consistent or not. It was a random sample. What I can say is that all 136 did drills this year during the first week of school.
Okay, but you had no idea on whether it happened last year.
They only reviewed 10 schools. They didn't review all of them.
Okay. And 7 of 10 schools did all the fire drills for the first term too quickly. Is that stat consistent across the board?
Again, hard to say, but one thing about doing them what is believed to be too quickly was that the idea the schools approached it from was, let's do the drills, let's reinforce it with students so they remember, and let's ensure that they have that basis of learning down. So going forward, if something does happen, they will have done it, repeated it a couple of times, and they were feeling that they had adhered to the policy. And what we're trying to suggest to them now is that no, we have to make sure they're equally spread out through the school year.
Okay, and I guess the last question would be, warranted or not, whenever, people talk about fire drills and schools, children, there's always that concern, like, oh, is my child safe, that kind of thing. Is there anything you have to say to kind of maybe assuage parents' fears, or is there anything you'd really like to communicate about this, about these findings?
The safety of children in our care is always our #1 concern. We absolutely want to reassure parents that our schools do conduct the number of fire drills they're supposed to each year. What we will make sure going forward is that they are doing that at equal times throughout the school year as they're expected to under the National Fire Code and our own school board policy.